Hey y'all, hey girl, hey. Oh, I forgot my little light. Hold on, give me a second. Oh, look, sometimes Periscope be playing me. There we go. Let me share it. Okay. Yes. Right. Hey. How y'all doing? Hey girl, hey. This is your first time on my live. My name is Allyson A. Robinson. I am an identity and purpose cultivator coach and of Hey Girl International, where we are empowering young women to embrace their uniqueness inside and out. This is your first time on my live. That means that you have not heard of 2020 year purpose. What have you been doing with your life? Why are you not knowing about 2020 year purpose? So I believe 2020 is the year that we're really going to you are really going to get a clear picture of who you've been called to be, especially in this time. I feel like it's a new decade, new time to really just kind of get out there, do everything that we've been called to do. And a big piece of that is also you knowing who you've been called to be, you knowing your identity. And then in return of you knowing your identity, being secure in your identity, you then discover what your purpose is. I got a camera over here too. So if you see me like this, it's because I got two cameras going on. All right. All right. So this is the first week of January. I decided I wanted to really kind of do like a walkthrough with some people who may not know their purpose, with people who may not know why they're here, why they were created to be here. So I wanted to kind of help some people walk through that. And the way I wanted to do that, sorry, I'm looking for a charger because my iPad's trying to die. The way that I wanted to go about doing that was truly walking with people through this. Some people have never heard of purpose, or you've heard of purpose, you have no idea what that means, or you've heard purpose, you know what it means, but I'm sorry, I'm looking for a charger. You know what it means, but it still seems like it's been a cliche, like something that doesn't really apply to you. And so I'm here because I wanted to kind of help you to discover that, to know that it's not something that's above you, it's not something that's beyond you. Purpose is for everybody. Everybody has a purpose. I always say you are a limited edition, available for a limited time only, which means that from the beginning of time and for all eternity, there'll only be one of you. So whatever's on the inside of you needs to come out. And the reason why it needs to come out is because we'll never see you again. The world will never see anybody just like you again, which means that whatever's on the inside of you has to come out or it will never come out. Maybe people will piece together some of what you've done. Other people might have a similar call. Other people might have a similar purpose. But the way that it was supposed to be done in the earth, the way God put it on the inside of you before you were formed in your mother's womb, when you were just an idea, a beautiful, bright idea to Him, that right there is what needs to come out into the world. And if you don't walk in your true identity, if you don't walk in your true purpose, if you don't walk in what you know you've been called to do and establish that thing in the earth before you leave the planet, it will never be seen and it'll never get done. So we needed to get done. So that's what I'm here to do. So first I was going to talk about purpose, what purpose was. That was going to be my focus. But I decided that, and after praying about it, you really can't know purpose and you really can't walk in purpose unless you know who you are, unless you know your God-given identity, unless you know why you were put on this planet, unless you know what you were put on this planet to be, who you were put on this planet to be. You'll never know what you're supposed to do and the why you are here. All right. So I talked before in my last video, and I would love for you to check it out. I posed the question: if nobody told you who you were, who would you be? If you never received a compliment, if nobody ever said to you, oh, you're good at this, oh, I would love to see you do this, or if people said to you, man, you're terrible at that, you should never do that again. If people never said that to you, who would you be on this planet? And I remember when God asked me that question, and I really had no clue. I shared in the last video that in undergrad, I wanted to be an opera singer. I was trained classically. I sang, took voice lessons, and that was something that I decided to do only because that's what was getting me attention, only because that was the thing that I thought was going to get me friends. That was the thing that was going to get me noticed by people, which it was. And I stuck with it because I felt like I didn't have anything else. I felt like because I already didn't know who I was, that if somebody was already telling me that I was good at something else, that must mean this is the thing that I need to stick with. If people were telling me, if people were crowding around me because this was the thing I was good at, then this must be the thing that I've been called to do. And so I really pursued that thing. That became my life dream. That became my life goal. And I didn't shake it until until I was getting my master's degree into grad school, and I found out that I had nodules, which means I had to go to vocal therapy. And nodules is like a death to a singer almost. Like you feel like you're gonna die when you have nodules. And so when that was taken from me, when the singing identity was taken from me, I honestly didn't know who I was. And because I didn't know who I was, I ended up in an identity crisis. I ended up trying to discover who I was aside from the singing, and I had no idea because I had put so much of myself and I really put all of me into this one thing. And the reason I put all of me into this one thing is because the world was telling me that that was what I was good at doing. And what really started to shake me was when I saw other people dedicated to it, other people putting the time in, other people putting the grunt work in. And I realized I wasn't doing that because I just wanted the end result. I didn't want to work for the end result. I just wanted the end result to show up. And so I had to go to God and say, God, who am I without this thing? And God began to unfold that to me. And the first thing he did was reveal to me my identity. The first thing he did was show me and tell me who I was in him. Not out in the world, not what the world is telling me I am, not the things that they put on the inside of my box to try to convince me of who I am based on where I'm from, based on how I look, based on where I went to school. Not that identity, but the identity that was given to me before I was formed in my mother's womb. And that's what we're talking about this month in January. So today's topic is one that I was kind of sparked to talk about because of a YouTube video that I'm going to talk about that I saw. And the only reason I'm going to give a disclaimer, the only reason I'm talking about the YouTube video is because it's a YouTube video, which means it's out there for the world to see. And I'm not going to reveal any names because I really don't know the name of the person. But I do want to kind of talk about identity because of their discussion about their identity and what they believed it was. All right. So I'm going to get into it. So, another piece of the, not knowing who you are and feeling as if you've taken on a false identity because of what the world has told you, because of what others have told you. Sometimes what ends up happening is after so much time, we feel stuck in a certain identity. And what I mean by that is we feel that we have done so much, put in so much time, put in so much effort to lead up to the identity we're walking in, that the moment we have a doubt about our who we're living as, the moment that that doubt sets in, we feel like we can't get out of it because we feel stuck. And I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why you feel stuck. So many times, let me share the YouTube video. So I was on YouTube yesterday, and it was a video. I don't know how it got on my timeline because I don't think I've ever really looked at anything like this. I'm not sure if I have, but maybe I did. I do like watching people's life stories. Like sometimes that's what YouTube is about. So sometimes I like doing that. So um there was a young lady that got on that was on YouTube. She was sharing her story. Tongue tied today. She was sharing her story about how she decided that she didn't want to be a boy anymore. And a little backstory: this young lady had gone through the transition into becoming a boy, into becoming a young man. And so I believe, and I'm don't quote me because I'm not 100% sure, but I believe she had gone through the bottom surgery where she had her pieces replaced for male pieces. She got her breast removed, and she was also taking testosterone. And so this was the identity that she thought that she needed. This is the identity that she took on. And then in the video, which I thought was really powerful, she revealed that the reason that she felt that she needed to become a man was because she was molested by a man when she was younger. And so, and this is all on the YouTube, so I'm not putting somebody's business out here. This is all on YouTube, and I'm not saying any names. So she started to talk about how she was molested when she was younger, and that gave her by a man, and that gave her a fear of men. And so she felt that going forward, because she hadn't really talked about it, because she hadn't gone to counseling about it, because she hadn't really expressed her feelings and started to heal from the process, she immediately went into a protection. And a lot of times we go through that. If something traumatic happens to us when we're younger, one of the first things that we do is we figure out some type of protective shield around us so that what happened to us doesn't happen again. And what ends up happening is we form this identity based on the trauma. We form this identity, even when we're older, we form this identity based on the mistakes that we made. And so, this false identity that comes up is something that we create simply because we're trying to protect ourselves from what happened to us, because we don't want it to happen again. And if it comes from a mistake, then we put on this persona to give the mistake an excuse, to give the mistake a like a birthing place. Like we say, 5 years down the line, if the mistake we made was, I don't know, getting into a relationship with somebody that, cheated on us. If that was, I don't want to say that was a mistake, but if that was a pain point in our life of somebody cheating on us, that becomes a starting point for the new identity that we take on, which is really a protection from pain and from that happening again. And so we end up putting on this new persona, saying to ourselves, I'm going to be this person because I don't want that to happen again. Or I'm going to become this person because I don't want to make that mistake again. And so we end up putting on this new persona, which is really a protective shield from the rest of the world, because we don't want something else to happen to us that's similar to the thing that hurt us in our past. And so as she began to talk, she said she decided to become a boy, and she felt that that was the identity she needed to take on, because she was terrified of men. After she was molested, she became terrified of men. And so because she became terrified of men, she felt the only way she could protect herself from men was becoming one. And that was the identity that she took on. And I'm not saying that's everybody's story. I'm talking about one story in particular. Okay. So she felt she had to take on the persona of a man to protect herself from men. And so she spent all this money, going through surgery after surgery to take away the old identity of her being a woman and her identifying herself as a woman. She felt she needed to identify as a man to protect herself from men. And she went through a lot of pain. She went through a lot of surgeries. A lot of healing had to take place. And now she's at a time now, years later, where she's realizing she selected the wrong identity. And she's realizing that the identity of the male she became was only birthed out of pain. And she felt stuck in this until she felt that she had the strength enough to get onto YouTube, because she had a YouTube channel full of videos of her transition and full of videos of who she was becoming as a male. So for her to step back out on YouTube and say, I don't want to be a man anymore, I want to be the woman I was created to be, it takes guts. Because if you gain a lot of following, and I'm going to get into this, you gain a lot of following, you gain a lot of people looking at you, you gain a lot of people coming to you and saying you're an inspiration for this, or, oh, thank you for sharing your story. It becomes hard for you to step out and say, I'm sorry, I chose the wrong identity. That person that you all fell in love with, that person that you all really like to follow, that person that you aspire to be like, that was not a real person. That was an identity I created because I didn't want to experience trauma again. I was trying to protect myself. And many of us do this. And we are afraid to admit it. We're ashamed to admit it, because that would mean going back to start, or going back to the original place where you were, where you experienced pain, where you experienced trauma, and trying to rebuild this life now 5, 10, 20 years later. And it's a rough spot to be in. When I made the decision, when because I had low self-esteem in high school, elementary, middle, high school, I had low self-esteem. Really college and grad school, probably not until last year sometime, I really was like, you know what? I'm pretty cool the way I am. I love who I am. I love who I've been created to be. So self-esteem was a real issue for me, especially in high school. And so for me to feel like because I felt like I never fit in. I was never like a part of the popular crew. I was never one that, people really like to be friends with. That was not the girl I was. I was kind of the weird one, or I was the one that people were like, oh, she cool. Or then I had people that were like, oh no, she lame. So that was not coming up. So for me to be in a position where somebody said to me, you have a really nice voice. You should stick with this. And then other people join in and say, you should really stick with this. This is your thing. This is your niche. For people to come in to me at a time where I had low self-esteem and wasn't liking who I was, for people to come in at that moment and start to tell me that a part of me was somebody I should become, it was easy for me to gravitate to it because I had nothing else to go off of. And many times that happens as well. Sometimes it's trauma, but then sometimes it's because we don't know ourselves enough, because we don't know our value, because we don't know our worth. The first thing that we hop on when it comes to identity is whatever somebody on the outside gives us. Because we're thinking, well, if they see that, then maybe 10 other people will see that. Maybe 20 other people will say that. So maybe I will be worth something. Maybe I will be great at something. And so that's the identity that we take on because that's the one the world says they like. Come on, somebody. That's the identity the world tells us that they like. And so, because we're trying to be liked, and because we're trying to be popular, and because we're trying to be the one that stands out, and we want people to love us, and we want people to adore us that are random strangers, because of that, we take on this identity that the world gives us. Because we say, that's the identity the world likes, that's the identity I'm going to go with. You don't like the real me. You don't like my curly hair. You don't like the way that my face looks. You don't like my skin color. Well, I'm going to do what I can to alter this and change this. So that way I become everything that you like. The only problem with that, which I talked about in the last video, the only problem with you doing that is when the world decides and starts to change. Oh, thank you so much. Somebody said I like your hair. When the world starts to change what they do like, you either have to change with them or go back to your original design, go back to your original identity, which can be tough. It can be tough. So, looking at my notes. So if we make this decision as a younger person in our youth, because a lot of times, sometimes traumatic things happen to us, and we can't defend ourselves. There's nothing we can do about it, and there's nothing we can do about it physically in that moment. But mentally and emotionally and spiritually, we make the decision of what we're going to do next. And sometimes that comes in the form of a new identity. Because we say to ourselves, even when we're young, we say to ourselves, if me being me attracted that, I don't want to be me anymore. That's what ends up happening. If the me I am today attracts people to do that to me, to harm me, I don't want to be that anymore. And we do that when we're young. We also do that when we're older. When it comes to relationships, if somebody hurts us really bad, we get into a bad relationship, a bad situation. We say, if the woman I am now attracted that man hurting me that way, or attracted that woman hurting me that way, I don't want to be that anymore. And so then we transition and we change our identity and we change who we are as a protective shield to say, I'm not going to let that happen to me again. I will never be hurt again. I'll never dedicate myself to a relationship again. I'll never dedicate myself to a person again. And we tell ourselves all these nevers, and we make all of these commitments to ourselves. We make all of these covenants with ourselves of who we're never going to be again, of what we're never going to do again. And then we're wondering 10 years down the line why we're still in the same position, or why we're a brand new person, and wondering why we're not attracting love into our life anymore. We wonder why we're not attracting other people to come in and make a commitment with us, to take vows with us before God. We're wondering why that happened, when in reality we have to go back to the moment we made the decision that we weren't going to be our original self anymore. And it's a tough concept to accept because it makes you go back and say, at what point in my life did I decide I didn't want to be me anymore? At what point in my life did I decide that who I was created to be originally, my original design that God sat and He crafted, He skillfully crafted before the foundations of the world? What was it in my life that turned me from my original design? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Because if we don't, and we don't take the time to dissect that moment in time where we decided to be somebody else, what ends up happening is we don't find the strength to come out of this new identity that we created for ourselves. And we end up stuck. And watching that YouTube video gave me so much hope for a lot of people in the world that are lost, not just in her particular situation, but in many situations, where women and men have made decisions to be certain people, but it is affecting their everyday life. It is affecting their children. It's affecting their spouses. It's affecting their jobs. It's affecting every area of their life. And they don't recognize it, but they feel like they've gone too far in this new identity to change now. Or they've hurt too many people, and to go back and try to be somebody else would not be accepted, would be foreign. People talk about Kanye West all the time, right? Kanye and his faith and what he's found in God. People talk about it all the time, and he even sings about it in some of his songs on his first album, since he's done his Sunday services and things like that. And it's interesting to me because Kanye's done some crazy stuff. He said some crazy stuff. He has truly been a name that people recognize and talk about all the crazy stuff he's done. And the moment he says, "I'm a Christian, I'm dedicating my life to God," people can't accept it, including people that are Christians, including people that believe. People can't accept it. And that was because he recognized he had chosen a false identity. And I don't know when he did it. I personally feel like it was when his mother passed away that he chose this alternate identity. And when he chose that alternate identity, we saw a chain of events from that moment. And I could be absolutely wrong, but that's what I'm thinking. But it was a chain of events from whatever that moment was that made him make the decision to change his identity. And so we see a chain of events of crazy stuff happening, him making crazy decisions, saying crazy stuff every single day in the world. And the moment he decides to change, the world can't accept the change, even though it's for the positive. Even though it's benefiting people, it's bringing people to Christ, people still can't accept it. People still can't accept it. And so sometimes when you choose this false identity to protect yourself or to ensure that something doesn't happen to you again, when we choose this alternate identity, when we choose this alternative personality, what ends up happening is we start walking in fear as time progresses, because we start seeing that our life is not turning out the way we would have hoped. We start seeing that our life is really starting to go down the drain, and we don't know why. Or we do know why, and we know how to get out of it. But to step back all those years to try to obtain an identity that we left behind years ago is a big change. It's a big monumental decision. And especially, the world is always watching now. We got social media, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. They're always watching. And the moment you try to make a change, the world is going to see that change. And based on this newfound boldness that I feel like social media has given the world, people going to say something. And so you either have to find the strength on the inside to say, I know this is not me. It is not benefiting me to be this person anymore. It's not benefiting me to stay in this space anymore. I need to go back to the start. I need to go back to my original design, my original creation, that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, that I'm crafted by God. I got to go back to that design. And we have to have the strength to say, and even if the world doesn't like it, oh well. Because as Lisa Nichols says, what other people think of me is none of my business. But it takes strength to say that. It takes courage to say that. It takes courage to make that decision. But it's an important decision to make. I wanted to get the pen drop. I wanted to share the definition of identity with you all. So identity, where did I write it down? So Merriam-Webster says identity is the distinguishing character or personality of an individual. the distinguishing character or personality of an individual. So when we take on or when we make up or create this new identity to protect ourselves or to as a response to something that's happened to us, we literally take on a whole nother person. We literally become a whole nother person. And we may look the same, and others, they're changing the way they look because they don't even want to deal with that. They don't want to deal with the original design because they fear that the original design was what brought on the trauma, was what brought on the pain, was what brought on the heartbreak. And so because of that, we go through drastic changes. I know when my boyfriend broke up with me in college, my first college boyfriend, person I lost my virginity to. And that I'm not ashamed to say that. When he broke up with me, the first thing I did was cut my hair. And you and many women out there do the same thing. As soon as they get out of a relationship, somebody breaks their heart. The first thing they do is cut their hair. They lose weight. They get new glasses. They try a new style because to them, they're saying the old me was not accepted. The person I was in that relationship that drew this person to me, but also drew them to break my heart. I don't want to deal with her because she brought on heartbreak. And many times we blame the trauma and the heartbreak on ourselves when in reality it was not our fault. But because nobody tells us it's not our fault, because nobody says to us what you went through was not good and that person is a bad person, when people don't tell us that, it doesn't reassure us that who we are is still okay. It doesn't bring the reassurance that even though I went through that, it was not my fault. It had nothing to do with me, but everything to do with that other person. When somebody lets me know that that was the situation, then I find comfort in still remaining myself because I know, regardless of who I am, that person was going to do what they did anyway. Regardless of how you looked, regardless of how you acted in a relationship, regardless if you were dedicated in that relationship, that person was probably still going to cheat on you because it wasn't because of you, it was because of their nature. It was because of who they were. And I realized for myself I had to get to the point where I said I'm enough regardless if you see it or not. And I even had to get to the point where I said that with my husband because and he has certain things that we've dealt with in our marriage. And there will be certain things he said, especially when we're new in marriage. When you're new, you're saying things and they're okay to you to say at first because you're not used to being with somebody 24/7, and that's what marriage is. And so it used to make me feel a certain way, and it would make me feel like I wasn't good enough, and it would make me feel like I wasn't a good wife. But I had to realize, and he's realized over time, and he's even shared that as he's grown as a man, he's realized it wasn't because of me he was saying things. It was because of something that was going on with him that he was saying it. And I had to recognize that, and it took me a while. We've been married 7 years now. It took me probably the last 2 years to realize and say to myself, I am enough, regardless if you see that or not. And you are enough, regardless if other people see that or not. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, regardless if other people see that or not. And that's something that you have to hold tight to because that's the beginning of your identity. That God sat and skillfully crafted you to be exactly who you are, to look exactly the way you look. Every follicle on your head is counted. The skin tone that He gave you was wonderfully hand painted by Him. He skillfully mixed every single skin tone that He had in His wonderful palette together to paint the skin that you're wearing even now. The voice that he had to fine tweak it and tune it on the inside, that it was something that was so unique that it would never be heard in the world again, but at the same time would be just enough to bring other people to him and bring other people to you based on what your purpose is. We are skillfully crafted by God. And we have to get to the point, and we have to even let our children know and let young people know you are beautiful the exact way you were made. There is nothing wrong with you. And even if somebody hurts you, even when somebody does something to you they shouldn't be doing, even when heartbreak comes, that doesn't mean that you're not good enough. That means there's something on the inside of them that is wrong. And we have to get to that place, or we'll always be changing identity to protect ourselves, or we'll always be changing identity to prevent other people from hurting us. What ends up happening when we do that is we can't walk in our God given purpose because we don't know it, because we don't know ourselves, because we created this fake image. So I want to get into the reasons why people stay stuck in an identity. And I identify with a lot of these. Money is one. Sometimes, we've created these identities. A lot of people create a lot of identities online, right? And so people live up to these identities. And what ends up happening is, because other people can identify with this false identity and this false reality people have created, they start making money off of it. And when people start making money, people say to themselves, well, the real me didn't make this much money, but the fake me is making this much money. So I'm going to go ahead and stay fake. I'm going to go ahead and live in this false identity. I'm going to go ahead and keep pretending that this is who I am and who I was created to be. And in my pretending, I'm going to keep cashing that check. When in reality, when that camera goes off, I'm battling because I know this is not who I've been called to be. And it may look cute on the outside and the videos that we follow and that we like all the time. We may love and enjoy seeing them. But behind that camera, people have been talking about this really recently. Behind the camera, people are something else. People are somebody else. People are struggling with their identity. People are struggling with who they've really been called to be, because they know the person that they're pretending to be, the person that's in front of the camera, is not real. But they make it too much money to go back and say, that's not me. They make it too much money to stop. That's real talk. Number two, recognition. So that goes sometimes hand in hand with money. You get this recognition. That's what I dealt with when I was decided to sing opera. That's what I dealt with, was recognition. Because sometimes this false identity that you put forth brings forth a new sense of, a new sense of recognition. And because you're being recognized for the person that you're faking to be, because you're being recognized for that, and you weren't recognized being your old self, you want to stay in this new identity you've created. You say to yourself, the old me wasn't popular. The old me was not fun. People said they didn't have fun with the old me. People didn't really like the old me. So why not the old me? People didn't really like the real me. Let me not say old. People don't like the real me. People like the fake me I've created. I said in the last video, I had created masks based on who I was with. I had a certain mask for every event. I had a certain mask for every group of friends. Because the real me, all of the pieces of me, I'm not just talking about, there are different pieces of you that you reveal to some people simply because, they can handle that side of you, but can't handle 100% of who you are. And so you reveal the certain pieces of yourself with a little bit of flair here and there so that you feel accepted. And it's because you're getting recognition for being that person. So when recognition comes in, sometimes we don't want to let go of this fake identity we've created of who we are, because we feel that the real us did not get that recognition. We feel that the real us wasn't accepted. We feel the real us was rejected. And that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people fear, is rejection. That's the biggest thing. We fear being rejected for being who we are. And so we create these alternative personalities. We say, this is the real me. And people accept that because we know that the real us was rejected at some point. But we know we have to get to the point where we say, whether you like me or not, whether you accept me or not, I'm going to still be me. My sun is still going to shine. And so you're either going to get sunglasses or you're going to go stand inside. Because my shine not going to change for nobody. Not now one of y'all going to change or affect my shine. And you have to get to the point that you say that. Another reason, we are fearful of the real us. This is a real thing, y'all. I'm serious, because I dealt with it. We're fearful of who we really are, because we either feel as if the real us is not as cool, not as popular for whatever persona we've been putting on, or the real us is actually so amazing and so great, but the mistakes that we've made and the experiences that we have will come back to haunt us and stop us from being the awesome person that we really are. And that's a real fear. That's a real fear to have, is that, oh my gosh, at some point, the mistakes that I made before I created this false identity are going to come back to haunt me. So I'm afraid of becoming my awesome self, because at some point it might get shut down. Or I'm afraid to be great. Sometimes that's like, why would you have a fear of being great? But people really have a fear of being amazing, or people really have a fear of being their authentic self, walking in their purpose, and it really being all that they dreamed it was. Somebody really saying, man, this is really it. Like I really got this thing down pat. Like I'm really walking in my purpose. Like this dream and vision I had, I literally just saw it come to pass. This is real. And we have a fear of getting to that point because many times we've told ourselves that that place is not real. Uh-huh. Many times we've told ourselves that this place of bliss and of walking in our uniqueness and walking in our purpose, that that place is not real. And so we'd rather create the life than actually experience the life that we've been promised before we were formed in our mother's womb. We'd rather pretend that this is our real life. We'd rather pretend that this is going to get us success than living an authentic success that comes from our authenticity and who we've been created to be. It's a real place. And you got to ask yourself, am I afraid of seeing who I really am? Am I afraid of experiencing true success? Am I afraid of feeling like my authentic self? Where when I wake up in the morning, I'm happy with what I see, or I see myself and I love what I see, but I know I need improvement. Is that a real place? We've convinced ourselves that that's not a real place, that us being successful is not real. We tell ourselves, and this is a key case in point, we tell ourselves that for people to get popular, for people to get famous, for people to get money, they got to be a part of Illuminati. That's the lie that we've been telling ourselves. Like, I'm not saying Illuminati, I don't know. But I'm saying, people have made this statement before. People would rather make up a reason why people are successful than simply accepting the fact that they work to get that success. Than simply accepting the fact that if you put your all into something, and if you're your authentic self, that you can have a certain level of success too. That's fine with you, because you may not be the next Beyonce, but you may be somebody that brings in all the homeless youth off the street, and that be just as amazing. And you see that as just as amazing or even more amazing simply because you've accepted your identity, you've accepted who you are. So are you afraid of who the real you is? Are you afraid of seeing the real you? It's a good question. Another reason why you stay stuck in an identity is because you feel like you're in too deep in this fake identity. You feel like I have gone too far for me to turn back now. And you feel like there's no turning back. You feel like it is too late. You feel like it's too late to be your authentic self. It's a real place. Because even as I was watching the video of the young lady that had gone through the bottom surgery, had gone through the top surgery, and the testosterone, she still has strength enough, even though she was in real deep. She was in real deep. She still has strength enough to come forward and say, that is not my identity, this is. And even though I may not have the parts I'm supposed to have, and even though I've chopped off parts that I'm supposed to have, I still go back to my original identity. And we have to find the strength to do the same thing. We have to find the strength to say, I know who I've been saying I was, y'all. I know I done took your coins saying that this is who I was. I know that you've been following me because it's who I said I was. But real talk, that is not me. And you know you're going to get backlash for it. And you know that people are going to be mad at you for it. Some people may be happy that you finally came into who you really are and expressed yourself. Like on the video of the young lady, I was close to move to tears. And I was inspired to keep living my truth, to keep being my authentic self and not create a false identity to deal with the pain, to deal with the mistakes that I've made, because that's what she had said she built her identity from. So sometimes we feel like we're in too deep and we're like, there's no way I can turn around now. There's no way I can still be this right now. Like, you think about women that have gone through, bad breakups, bad situations, have lost children. Like there are different types of situations, men or people who have lost their parents, who have lost their spouses, who lost their children. And they told themselves all of these lies. And so they begin to walk the lie out. You're in a bad relationship and you have your heart broken. You tell yourself, I'm not worthy of love. You tell yourself, I'll never be hurt again. You tell yourself, I'm going to make sure I'm never hurt again. And you start walking in this persona and this new personality that is nothing like you. That is nothing like you. I know for me, when I was in college, and I've written about this in a book before, and I'm not ashamed to share it. My freshman, sophomore, junior year, I was out here thotting real talk on my campus. And it really started my freshman and my sophomore year, with my first two relationships that I had on campus. And so, because the relationship was heavy in the physical, I began to tell myself, in order for somebody to love me, or in order for somebody to like me, we have to be physical. Excuse me. And that's what I began to tell myself. And so when I was dating my junior year, when I was talking to someone my junior year, I said to myself, well, I gotta give it up, because that's the only way they're gonna like me. That's the only way that they're gonna want to connect with me again. I just gotta give it up. And so that was the lie I continued to tell myself, was the way that I earn love, the way that I earn a relationship, the way that I earn somebody's affection is for me to give it up, for me to have sex. That's the only way that somebody's gonna truly like me, and not even a real me, just a fraction of who I am. That's the only way they're gonna like me, is if I give it up. And so I was giving it up my junior year, out here stupid, just being stupid, just being unsafe and being stupid. And so I continued to live that life, even though that's not who I was. That was not my persona. That was not me. And when people read my book and heard my testimony, they were like, Allyson, you did not do that. Yes, I did, because I wasn't sure of my identity. And so that was what I stepped into, because I convinced myself that if I wanted a good relationship, and if I wanted somebody to really love me for me, I needed to give it up. That was what I kept telling myself over and over again. But I had to get to the point where I said, no, that is not who I am. That's not me. When I got to the point where I looked in the mirror, literally, I looked in the mirror after being dropped off from a night of to a morning after, being dropped off at my dorm room, going in the bathroom, looking in the mirror, and literally not identifying or knowing the woman that was looking back at me. I kid y'all not. You go to the mirror all the time. You look at yourself in the mirror, and you fixing your hair. But sometimes we don't always get eye to eye contact with ourselves. This is the first time I had done that in years, where I actually looked at me. And I'm not talking about the outside me. I'm talking about looking at my soul through my own eyes. And I looked into my own eyes and had no idea who was staring back at me, because I had created this false identity I had been walking in. And this identity was getting me nowhere but hurt and pain, and being filled with soul ties, and people on the inside of me that I ain't know, and they ain't know their last name. That was the life I was living. And I didn't even know who I was anymore. And I was in so deep, but it wasn't deep enough for God to come and get me out. I'm telling y'all. You want to know your true identity, you got to go to the person that created you. You got to go to God to get your identity, because that's the person that created you. You're not going to take an Apple to a Microsoft store just because you put a Android case on it, or because you downloaded the Android software. It's still not an Android. It don't matter. It's still an Apple phone. You still got to take it to the Apple store. It don't matter who you said that you were. You still got to go back to God to figure out who you have been called to be, and to remind you that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. So you're never in too deep to get out. You are never in too deep. If this message might be for you. If you feel like you have been walking this life every single day, and you know that the person that you're seeing in the mirror is not the person that you were supposed to become, if you know that you've created this false identity that has been not only hurting you, but hurting your family, hurting your children, hurting your friends, hurting your spouse, but you say to yourself, I'm in too deep in this thing to get out. I've been out here cussing everybody out I know. I've been out here beating men's car windows in. I've been out here scratching up men's cars. I didn't got in trouble for hitting a man. I didn't got in trouble for hitting a woman, all of this. And you say to yourself, I cannot change. That is not true. That is a lie from the enemy. You are not in too deep for God to pull you out and remind you of who he created you to be. And I'm here to let you know it's fearfully and wonderfully made. And we're going to talk about that. I don't want to get too deep. We're going to talk about that as the month progresses, about who God has called you to be, because you have to get back to who you've originally been called to be. You are never in too deep to get back to your original self. Never. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what you've done to your body. I don't care what you've done to your face. I don't care what you've done to your hair. I don't care what you've done if you got a record. I don't care what you've done if you dropped out of school. I don't care. I don't care. There is no place that God will not go to get you and bring you back to who he originally designed you to be. Know that. All right, I'm gonna get too deep. All right. Next reason that we stay stuck in an identity is because we are comfortable in the chaos. Many times, we allow chaos into our life on multiple occasions because chaos becomes a comfort. And when there is peace and when there is silence, we don't know what to do. When we have peace, we're like, is something wrong? Something going wrong? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? We can't be comfortable in peace because chaos becomes our comfort. And that was something me and my husband dealt with when we were like our first few years of marriage was like a messier house and crazy stuff going on. I'm gonna say crazy stuff going on, but papers being everywhere, trying to focus on a paper. We both got our master's degrees, trying to focus on a paper, but papers being scattered everywhere. Hey. So it became chaos. And I was like, man, you gotta straighten all this up so you can focus on what you're supposed to be doing. And he became comfortable in his chaos. And sometimes that happens in our life. We really become comfortable in the chaos. We cannot have peace. So we become comfortable in our chaos. And the moment we try to adjust and say, this is still uncomfortable, I think I'm going to try to go back to my original design, and stuff starts to get peaceful. We start to have joy. We like, wait a minute, something got to be wrong. I'm not crying as much as I used to cry every night. I'm not staring in the mirror, hating what I see. Something's wrong. And then we try to bring chaos back in. So sometimes that keeps us stuck because we try to stay stuck in that chaos because that becomes a place of comfort. But I declare chaos is not going to be your comfort. Okay. Next, we stay stuck in our identity in a false identity because we don't want to start at zero or we don't know where to start. So if you experience a trauma and like the young lady did I was talking about on YouTube, you experience a trauma and you put on this new persona to protect yourself. That happens at a very young age. And so now you're talking, this young lady on YouTube, she was like an adult now. Like I think she's in her 20s. So you have to think if this happened when she was 7 to 10 years old, that's 10 years of a false identity she's been living. And for her to go back to who she was originally would almost be, and it's not, it would almost seem like she's starting at zero, that those 10 years are lost time. And if you created this false identity, if you experienced a bad heartbreak and now you become kind of a chaotic and crazy girlfriend to people or ex-girlfriend to people, and excuse me, you've done it so many times where you spazzing out on your boyfriend, or you busting the windows out his car like Jasmine Sullivan or something crazy. And then you say to yourself, well, I really don't want to be that person anymore. But everybody already knows me as that person. So maybe I should stay here, because to go back would mean completely changing who I am and almost starting at zero, starting at start. But you're not starting at start. You're not starting at start, because God can redeem the time. That's one. But then two, you pick right up where you left off. And even though, going back to your original identity doesn't happen overnight. And so it's a continual changing process. And it is beauty in the process. There's beauty in you going back to who you've originally been called to be. There's beauty in you going back to your original design and your original purpose. There's beauty in that. There's beauty in you going back and seeing the beauty in who you truly being created to be, and not in this fake persona. So the time is not lost because you still learn lessons. Because the real you, regardless of what you've created on the outside, the real you has still been in there somewhere. When I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself, the reason I couldn't recognize myself was because there was still a real piece of the authentic me on the inside. And there was no way I could have seen a false identity and seen that I was having an identity crisis had I not still had some of the real me on the inside. So, regardless of who you've become, regardless of what you've done to try to get rid of the old you, somewhere deep on the inside, there is still some of the real you. And so, the real you has still been with you this whole time. So, you have not lost time. You have not lost time. You have not lost yourself. You is still in there somewhere. We just have to get to the point where we have the strength to say, the person I've been putting out on the outside is not me. This is the real me. I'm going to continue to walk as the real me. And still acknowledge the things you like and dislike. You still know those. Your taste buds did not change. Who you were internally did not change. The things you see did not change. The way your clothes fit did not change. So there's still you on the inside. We just have to find the strength to move past all of these things, all these reasons why we stay stuck, and say to ourselves, I'm going to go back to being the original me. And then the last one I talked about a little bit, fear of rejection. We're afraid that the real us will be rejected. And here's the thing, it will. It will. I'm going to go ahead and let you know that when you decide to be your authentic self, the world is going to reject it. Many people in the world are going to reject it. I'm going to tell you why. One, because many of them are still living fake identities. Two, because there is comfort in knowing that everybody is not being who they've been called to be. You know, when you get in a circle of mess and everybody's comfortable because everybody's a mess. But then when you start growing and then other people don't want to like you anymore, or they don't want to be your friend no more, they don't want to mess with you no more. It's simply because you've made them uncomfortable. So when you accept your real identity and who you've been called to be, you're going to make people uncomfortable because they realize that you had the strength to come out of your false identity when they're still stuck in theirs. So people are going to reject it. People that have gotten close to you, people that have started to watch you and they're starting to say, man, I really look up to you, they're going to be upset because you're going to mess up the status quo. So you can't hear? Really? I hope oh no. My volume is up. Sorry. I don't know what to do. I hope you can hear me now. I turned it up. I'm not sure. So you're going to mess up the status quo. You're going to mess with all the people that have followed you. If you got recognition for this false identity, if you got recognition or money for being this fake person, more than likely you're going to be rejected. But guess what? That's okay. Because as long as you come to a place where you love you, and as long as you come to a place where you accept who you have been created to be, everybody else accepting you is extra. That's just nice. Oh, you think I'm great? Oh, that's nice. I already thought I was great. But thank you for telling me. That's nice to hear. Thank you for being so polite and sharing that with me. That's the place that you have to get to. That you say, oh, that's nice that you like me and you accept me. I wasn't asking for it, but that's nice that you're giving me that. You literally have to get to that place of confidence and knowing that who you're walking as and who you've been called to be is all right because it came from God. Everything come from God is good. So I know I'm great. I know I'm amazing. But thank you. Oh, you don't like me? Oh, you think I'm doing the most? Oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. But if you want to, there's an unfollow like you have to get to that point. And it took me a while because one of my biggest thing was me being over the top, being extra, right? So I could be over the top and be extra. That's just my persona. And there will be times people be like, I would do something extra, people be like, huh, here she go again, doing the most. Or I would get looks from people, or people just didn't like me. And so I said to myself, well, if they rejecting, this part of me, maybe I should stop. And so there was a time I was like, I'm not gonna say nothing. I'm not gonna laugh. I'm not gonna say nothing. Then people's like, why you not saying nothing? Why you not being your real self? Stop acting like that. And it's like, but you was just saying I was doing the extra. And I took extra to be a bad thing. Now I'm gonna be extra. I'm gonna do the most. I'm gonna do the most because I like to do the most. I like to go above and beyond. I like to be extra. I like to be over the top. Why not? Why not? Because truly it brings joy to people's faces when I do it. But whether they're joyful or not, I love just being free to be myself. And whether people like it or not, it's cool. Because truly what you think of me is none of my business. What's my business is what I think of me. What my business is the places, the area of my life I can grow in, and where God needs me to alter myself and change things so that I can be respectful of Him and be a great representation of Him. But whether you like me or whether you don't like me, I'm not bothered. I may be like, I wonder why, but that's not gonna last too long. Because, like I said in the beginning of the video, people that have an issue with you and people that have an issue with the things you're doing and the person that you're becoming, the issue is not with you. The issue is with them. Now, if you out here talking reckless to people, that's one thing. You out here talking reckless, that's different. You got to change your tone a little bit. But if you're simply being yourself and you're confident and comfortable in yourself, when people have an issue with that, the issue is not with you. The issue is with them. Because you are a representation of the freedom that they do not yet know. And I say yet because of that wonderful quote Marianne Williamson says, when you shine your light, you I can't think of the exact word. You basically give permission to other people to do the exact same. So if I start walking in my freedom and I start walking in my authenticity and I start accepting me for who I am, regardless of how people feel, other people may be uncomfortable at first because people that are walking in freedom, they can be a little uncomfortable, especially when other people are used to bondage. And that's why I talked about that comfortable in chaos. When other people are comfortable in chaos and you walking around in peace and joy and love, that makes people uncomfortable because they've never experienced it before. They want to know what the secret is. So you may make them uncomfortable at first. But after a while, they're going to start asking questions. How should you get like that? Like, why are you so confident? Like, like your teeth up top, like they small right there, like you chunky in the face a little bit, your hair can be a little frizzy. Like, why are you so confident when the world says you need to be skinny, and the world is telling me that like you need to be like small in the face, and the world says you need to have defined curls and not like crazy curls like that, and the world says that you need to lose that stomach or you're not beautiful, but you out here loving yourself. What's wrong with you? Something's wrong with you. But then they start saying, no, something wrong with me, because I've been accepting this lie that who I am and what I look like is supposed to be based on what the world is telling me I'm supposed to be looking like. What? Something's wrong with me. And I had to realize that. No, no, I need to get myself together, because y'all gonna like me one day, you gonna hate me the next day. So if I'm worried about you and I'm worried about how you feel about me, I'm gonna be changing every single day because you change it every single day. You got on a new mask every single day. You being swayed by your emotions and by the issues that you had that's haunting you from when you were younger. That's you. And the minute I give my identity over for your approval, I'm lost. Cause you ain't never gonna know who I am because you don't know who you are. So we have to take the reins back on our identity. And we have to ask the honest question: is who I am today who God created me to be? Or is this an identity that I created for myself to protect or to ensure that what has happened to me in the past will never happen again, or to make sure that I'm not rejected, so that I fit in with what the world is saying is wonderful. But the moment we start doing that, we give our identity over to other people and to the world to make the decision about who we are. And one day they're going to make a bad decision and you're going to come to a crossroads, because you're going to have to decide, am I going to continue living up to what the world says I'm supposed to be doing and compromise on my beliefs and compromise on what I know to be true and compromise on what I know to be right just to fit in? Or am I going to take a step back and reanalyze and say, you know what, this is not me. And I can't keep giving my identity over to you. Because if I do that, if I give my identity over to you, it's going to always change. I'm going to always be wrong. I'm going to always need improvement. I'm going to always need to be better. I'm going to always have to be something for somebody else. I'm going to have to be moving when the wind blows. Okay, because sometimes people attitudes and how people feeling and what the person with the mic is saying, the person whose volume is turned up loud and the world is saying, that's what people say is the right thing to do. That's what people say is the right thing to say. And if I keep going by what the person with the loudest mic says and the mic keep changing hands, I'm gonna always be changing my identity. We gotta be consistent in who we've been called to be. And if you have created a false identity based on what others have told you, based on what has happened to you, based on trauma, based on heartbreak, based on mistakes, you have to go back, look yourself in the mirror, and identify that who is looking back at you is not who you've been called and created to be. But go in there with knowing that there is strength in finding your true identity. Not only that, when you accept who you've uniquely been created to be, that is your true superpower. That is your true head above everybody else. Why? Because there's no other head out there like yours. And there'll never be for the rest of all eternity. Nobody will ever see you again. Nobody. But if you keep faking and keep being a bad carbon copy of somebody else, the world never will. And what you were supposed to do in the earth will never happen. And those lives will never be changed. So you have to take back your original identity. You have to heal from whatever it was that brought you trauma. You have to let go of the heartbreak and understand that it wasn't your fault. It was nothing wrong with you. That's why we change our identity, because we think it was something wrong with us that brought on the outside pain. But it was nothing wrong with you. It was something wrong with the other person. You are amazing. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You were handcrafted by God. Your skin color, every single hair on your head. Nobody on this planet has the same amount of hairs you have. Ain't that crazy to say? Nobody. Nobody has your voice as it was fine-tuned by God before you created before you even in your mother's womb. Your voice was fine-tuned to have a certain frequency, to have a certain timbre. When I was studying voice and I was becoming an opera singer, I had a voice teacher that said to me, "Why do you talk like that?" She said, "If you're going to be a soprano, you need to start talking like this. And you need to start speaking on the breath. And you shouldn't be out here talking the way you're talking. You're talking way too low." And so I started walking around talking like that, y'all. I'm not lying. I started walking around. Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I think that I'm supposed to be going to this class right now. It took so much energy to be faking my voice. It took so much energy. But I did it because that person said that's what I was supposed to do. If I wanted to be this, if I wanted to get recognition for being a great soprano, if I wanted to get recognition for being a good soloist, I need to start talking on the breath because how I was talking was just not healthy. But this is my voice. And I accept it because nobody on this planet has it. Nobody. And I cherish it and I love it. And I used to say, man, I talk really low for a woman. I don't know if that's cute. No, it's cute. It's cute to me. I don't know if y'all think it's cute. I ain't worried about if you think it's cute. I know I think it's cute. And if you think it's cute, that's nice. And if you don't, that's nice. Oh, well, I think it's cute. I think it brings the strength. I think it brings the power. I think it makes people pay attention. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. So we have to get to the point where we say who we have originally been created and designed to be is perfect. That's not saying we don't need improvement. That's not saying we can't get a little fix up here and there. Even our iPhones got to go to the Apple store at some point to get a little tune up. We have to take our original identity back. We have to, because we do a disservice to this world when we don't walk in who we've been authentically created to be. That is all I have for tonight. I went like really long. I didn't want to go this long, but I did. Join me tomorrow. We start week 2 of identity. And week 2, I am talking about who does God say you are. You do not want to miss that because he says some great things about who he's called you to be and why he needs you to be who he's created you to be. All right. I love y'all. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this broadcast, share it. I'm going to post it on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram. Hey girl _ it's Allyson. Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed your first time here. Thank you. Welcome. Follow me on Instagram. Hey girl _ it's Allyson. That's ALLYSON. Join the Facebook group. Hey girl, it's Allyson. I have a YouTube channel. Hey girl, it's Allyson. My website is AllysonARobinson.com or HeyGirlINTL.com. If you are struggling with identifying your purpose, I have a purpose cultivation called Just for You. So go over to my website, sign up. If you have a book in you that you know you're supposed to be getting out, you got a business idea and you've been trying to figure out how to piece everything together. If you need just somebody to talk to about relationships, about motherhood. I got twins, 2 of them, they 3. Listen, it's a rough journey. Head over there, check me out, sign up for it. It's called a Pick My Brain strategy session. I give you 30 minutes. We could talk about, plan out whatever you need, whatever you feel like you need for 2020 for you to walk in your purpose. We will talk about it. And if I don't know nothing about it, I will tell you I don't know nothing about it, and I will send you to somebody that might know. I am not ashamed to say I do not know, because that is my identity, and I'm not going to pass what I have originally been called and created to do. All right. I love y'all. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you follow me here on Periscope. I just turned my light off. All right. Love y'all. Peace.